Good evening, Midlands African Chamber. I'm Shay Ololafe. Welcome to another edition of the Power Hour, brought to you by our champion and supporter, Wells Fargo. Tonight, we are here to talk about ethics and ethical relationships and how do you build them from the jump, the start. But before we jump into our presentation for tonight, as is custom, let's go over some of the things and events that are happening in our community. First and foremost, next week on the 26th of October, we have the Rising CEO Summit. That will be at the UNO Barbara White's Community Engagement Center. You do not want to miss that. It's between 4:30 to 7 p.m. Do not miss that event. For anybody who has youth who are looking to be entrepreneurs, this is your opportunity to show up and get connected. Second, we have a meet and greet on October 29th out in Bennington. That is from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Again, you do not want to miss that. What we do in the chamber is we not only empower, we not only champion, but more importantly, we connect. Last but not least, November 11th is our annual Gratitude Gala. This is an opportunity that we give thanks and we give gratitude for those who step up and to do the things that others are not doing. And that is an event that you do not want to miss either. Tickets are still available. Please show up. It's also a silent fundraiser. There'll be auction items. I know some of the people last year got on some trips. You don't want to miss that. But more importantly, this is an opportunity to also connect and get to meet the people who are making a difference in our community. So, without any further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, Dr. AnnMarie Marlier. Thank you so much
Hello.
for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've had just such wonderful interactions with the Midlands African Chamber, and I'm so excited to be here for the second time this year, which is
And
really cool.
and being the second time, the first
Mhm.
time was back in
April,
April, and
right?
that was at a roll call event.
It was. So it was so much fun to talk to everybody, to get to learn more about the chamber, to talk, and we'll go over a little bit about what we talked about at that point. It was something a little different, and so the relationship, talking about building ethical relationships. We're building ethical relationships together with new folks. So it's kind of exciting for me.
No, and we appreciate your efforts and willingness to come back even
Yeah.
again to this
Mhm.
platform of the Power Hour, so that those who weren't able to be there back in April can still have the opportunity to get that social capital that's so important to building strong ethical relationships.
Absolutely. I am a huge networking fan. I am not an Omaha native. I moved here about 9 years ago. And so for me, coming into a new community where I only knew my husband's family and they're wonderful, lovely people, but I can't build a whole life with just in-laws. So, um, so to come in and to be able to meet all kinds of new people and learn about my newly adopted city has been phenomenal. And so a lot of what I put into the different presentations are things that I had to learn maybe the hard way or somebody else gave me a tip. And so now I want to be able to share that with others.
Absolutely, and we have to think the similar background where Omaha is not my native
Okay.
city. I relocated here in 2016, and it can be difficult,
Yes. Hmm.
especially if you're coming in
Yeah.
on based on a job, based upon
Yes.
work. You
Yes.
don't necessarily have that connection as if you were going to school,
Right.
or some of those other avenues where you're just surrounded by the same people every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm there with you. So not much longer than you. I've come to really love and appreciate Omaha and everything it has and all of the different opportunities and the different groups. It's phenomenal, but boy, it's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If there's only one thing I would change, it's the weather.
Well, I come from Wisconsin. So for me, I'm like, this is pretty okay. Right? By now it is not uncommon for Wisconsin to have a little snow or some really cold nights. So this is okay with me.
That's a little bit. But I come from Michigan, and I still hate snow. So I am the mindset. I'm just not far enough south. That's where I'm at.
I love
So,
it.
so
I
without
love
any further ado, tonight's presentation is building ethical relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm going to do is this is in two parts. And so, I will just give you a little bit of information for those who are watching us who don't know much about the Business Ethics Alliance. In some ways, we're right out front, in other ways, we're kind of one of those, wow, that's a really cool kind of best kept secret. And so, want to share a little bit about the Alliance itself. Then, I'll take a little break and we'll see if there's any questions.
Okay,
And then I'll kind of get to the meat of what we're going to talk about with the networking and then building those ethical relationships. Does that work for you?
that's fantastic. Let's begin.
Perfect. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to share a screen here. And if this all works, you should see the screen. Yay, it works. How exciting. Sorry, it's just, it's late at night. And so I'm excited here. Okay.
The small wins. I take
The
small
small
wins.
wins, always, always, always the small wins. So, just a little bit about me. I mean, you introduced me. I'm the executive director of the Business Ethics Alliance. In our conversation, you learned that I am not from Omaha originally. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And though, as the executive director here, most of my time is spent developing and building and maintaining relationships and doing it in an ethical way so that really our relationships are mutually beneficial, because that's what you want ideally. And I think it's probably really good to know that the language of ethics isn't just always an ethical this or an ethical that. Sometimes we say we're just going to do the right thing, or I want to do right by you,
Mm.
or something that sounds like that. So I might use that language interchangeably a little bit. So because I had somebody comment once, we hardly ever talked about ethics, and the whole presentation was about building healthy relationships and networking and doing the right thing. And I'm kind of going, okay. So now I put a little disclaimer in front. Something else that's I think important to know is that before I came to the Alliance, I spent almost 25 years in higher education.
Ooh.
So I have been a faculty member. I've been a program director. I've started and managed them. I've been an academic dean for almost 15 years. I was in student affairs director, working with student groups and leadership development. So that is my home. I'm on just a little bit of a break because higher ed is wonderful and amazing. It's just a little bit of a hot mess right now. So need to cool the fire a little bit here. When I have not been in higher education, though, I've been in all over the place. So I worked for the Disney stores as a manager, and that was an incredible experience. I worked in not-for-profit organizations back home, both at Goodwill and the YWCA, mostly adult education and training. And I've also done some work with an entrepreneurial startup, Genosco.co. I owned a floral business with a partner of mine. So it's just kind of all over, right?
Yeah.
And so for anybody out there who's going, wow, I thought my journey was crazy. It's okay. The journey will get you there. And it's important to enjoy the journey because you will learn something from every step of the way.
So if I understand you correctly,
Yeah.
all your past experiences are transferable to what you're doing today.
Oh, 100%. Sometimes I might have to take a little bit more time, or I might have to talk to a couple of folks about it, but everything at my heart, and this is what you'll see kind of in that last bullet, is my degrees are in English and communication and adult education with a little bit of business administration. So you can see the teacher in there, right? I'm an adult educator. That's at the heart of everything I do. And I've known I wanted to be a teacher, geez, since I've been like 5. So some people feel calling like in the clergy or law enforcement. For me, teaching was my calling. And I still get to do that here, which is the exciting part for me. So a little bit about the Alliance itself. We are celebrating our 15th year this year, and we're so excited, right? We were founded in 2008 formally, and this was following the Enron scandal, and that happened in the mid 2000s. So those in Omaha might remember that. Ken Lay was the CEO and president of Enron, and there were a lot of, well, let's just say, irregularities, and it was discovered through an audit process what these irregularities, the extent of them. And so at the time, Dr. Beverly Crocker, she is at Creighton University, still is, she founded the Alliance. She started having some conversations with Jim Hegarty from the Better Business Bureau around here, David Brown, who's the former president of the Omaha Chamber, and then Dr. Anthony Hendrickson, who's the dean of the Heider College of Business at Creighton. Bob Bates, who's a former CEO of Jefferson Pilot, he was part of those conversations representing the Omaha business community. And the general thought was, no, this is not who we are in Omaha. This is not how we want to be known for doing business. There's got to be a better way. And so what they came up with is, on a citywide level, they would collectively put their heads together to think about different kinds of ethics education initiatives. Try saying that one 3 times fast. And they would share these ideas and the different examples through a variety of different types of events and workshops, eventually a conference, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. So we are unique. There is no one else like us in the country. No one else has that partnership and that collaboration of a college and university, a chamber of commerce, and the Better Business Bureau. In fact, when we tried to take that model to other places, or other places inquired about it, what we found is that there was too much competition between the Chamber of Commerce and the Better Business Bureau for members, because they were both membership organizations. So they didn't have that collaborative spirit. Other places we found the ethics organizations were housed in a university, strictly in the university. And so it was kind of isolated from the other two. So our model here in Omaha truly is very unique. Okay. And that's what makes us really special. Our mission: we build leadership, we strengthen organizations, and we elevate Greater Omaha and beyond now through positive, practical business education. Omaha city limits don't stop us.
Okay.
Council Bluffs, growing, right? Sarpy County, growing. Washington County to the north, growing. Omaha is kind of unique in how it kind of gobbles up, SIDS and annexes them. So as it's kept annexing to the north and to the west and to the south, we just keep growing. And so I feel that our work also needs to grow with that. And then through our work, and this is our vision, through our work, the Greater Omaha area, so I'll just kind of use Omaha and beyond, will be a beacon for business ethics excellence for cities all around the world. We give away an award at our conference called the Beacon Award. And that is an award that goes to those both locally, maybe statewide, regionally, also nationally, who are those beacons of business ethics. Past winners have been Colin Powell, former, right? Madeleine Albright, Condoleezza Rice. And another person who many people know in the business community is Luke Christensen. He passed away this April and had been on our board and is a longtime member and Builder Trend. So we honored his legacy through that.
Okay.
And then our values. We're going for big impact. We want to make a difference, right?
Yep.
We're always learning. We are supportive. We are tenacious, and we respect everyone. Our job is not to do the coulda, should, you must. We don't judge. That's not our way. We create safe spaces, and that sounds a little cliche, but we do. We create safe spaces for business leaders to come and have those tough decisions about ethics and ethical decisions. When I say business ethics, I don't mean that the business has to be a for-profit business. Think about business ethics as the way you conduct business, but the organization could be for profit. It could be a community organization. It could be a not-for-profit. Could be a homeowners association, right?
Right.
So business ethics are how you do your organization's business. It doesn't mean that it just has to be corporate.
Okay.
So I think those are important distinctions for people to understand, because I can see where some go, business ethics, oh, that's just for the for-profit, the corporate. Nope. Everybody needs to think about business ethics.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I understand you correctly, the ethical way of handling money, whether you're for-profit or nonprofit, still maintains the same. It's just whose
Absolutely.
pocket it's coming from.
Absolutely. You know, if the homeowner president, right, the homeowner HOA president is favoring some neighbors or skimming a little off the top or whatever it is, there's no trust there.
Nope.
And so then the rest of the homeowners become dissatisfied. And in a sense, they're the clients, right? They're the customers.
Yep.
So it really is important to think about doing what's right, doing what is ethical. And earlier today, I gave a presentation to an organization, and the topic was ethics or compliance, which holds more weight. You know, does it always mean you are ethical if you're being compliant? Or if you're being compliant, does it always mean you're being ethical? Well, you know, a lot of the discussion was, well, it kind of depends.
That's the favorite word of any attorney. It depends.
It depends.
And
Context.
yeah, very, very much. And that's a great point, because sometimes, you know, what is compliant may not necessarily be ethical.
Right. And that was a big part of the discussion we had. And so we talked a lot about, you know, things that you find in everyday life. AI, how we use AI. You know, what happens when the policy or the law or the regulation is not fair? And that happens a lot, right?
Oh,
So yeah,
yes.
more than we want it to.
Yes.
You know, when is it okay to break the law or break the policy or break the regulation, or when is it better to try to change it? And it depends. So there was some really good discussion about thinking that through. This was a group of people who had gone through their organization's leadership training, and so now they're alum, and now they're kind of out in that, you know, in their jobs and really wrestling with these things. Okay, so what do we do? I know some of this is just a little small. I'm happy to share the slides with the MAC, and you guys can send them out if people want them, you know, or even better, call me or, you know, email me, and I'm happy to share. So we do a lot of things. One of the things that we're really known for is our signature events. Those are events that, oh, thank you, perfect, hey, where we bring together business leaders at all different levels, and we talk about ethical topics. So for example, on the left-hand side, our signature event in March this year was about women in leadership. And so we had a panel talking about women in leadership, and you might recognize a few familiar faces. On the right, we had the director of Google's responsible AI division come and share her thoughts about, you know, what's going on with Google and AI and the future of AI. So these are places for people, again, safe spaces for people to talk about difficult things and ask good questions. We also have a conference called Ethics Space, and Ethics Space turned 5 years old this year. And it is really one of the only conferences in the region that is devoted strictly to ethics. So last year, I talked about our founding just a little bit ago as coming on the heels of the Enron challenges. And last year, we had as our speaker, Sharon Watkins, who was the whistleblower for Enron.
Oh, wow. And the amount of backlash that she probably had to experience as a result.
Yes, absolutely. And she's a great storyteller. So she was able to talk about, you know, how the irregularities were discovered and all of the different steps she went through, and the backlash, like you said, the backlash So it's really phenomenal. This year we had Dr. Jim Harder. He works at Gallup as their senior workplace scientist. And he's got a new book out called Culture Shock, which takes a look at the last 5 years of what's been happening in the workplace, some of the trends, some of the opportunities. And then we had breakout speakers talking about different kinds of workplace opportunities that have ethical issues sort of built right in.
I mean, one of the biggest ethical issues going on right now would be and this is not even a matter of you being an entrepreneur, just period, is just, the whole continue work from home and what that means and what that entails. And the amount of work that is actually being done versus what you're getting paid versus, having to go to the office, conversely, it's the decisions to go to the office and how that now, is impacting people who, ethically were doing their jobs and being fine. And for whatever reason of, having this mentality, if you're not physically at a location, that means you're not working. And there's some major decisions that go on and are involved in the real course of action, goes into the law is going to say one thing, but ethically speaking, how is that impacting the organization?
You are 100% on target. It's almost like you read the book. And the book really kind of goes into like, why are these ethical issues? They don't call them ethical issues, but when you see disengaged employees and when you see more physical and psychological distance between the employee and the employer and support of the organization's mission, how do we re-engage? How do we maintain a sense of engagement that is beneficial for both employer and employee? And what are those opportunities? It's an easy read. It's a quick read. Highly recommend the book. We had about 300 people there with us that day talking about not just the book, but looking at some of those different breakouts. And then kind of finally, we've got some publications and media. We do a podcast.
Okay.
We that's a monthly podcast. We have our Beacon magazine that comes out a couple times a year. And one of the newer projects that we're working on is called The Sweet Life with Christy Anderson. Christy has been with us for quite some time. And so she interviews different kinds of folks from the C-suite about what they're like outside of the office, as well as what drives their decision-making in.
Okay.
So last thing that I just want to mention briefly that we do a lot of training, a lot of workshops. We can custom design things, things like Ethics 101. Okay, what do we really mean by ethics and ethical decision making? And what do we mean by ethical blind spots? We do a lot of work with leadership and developing ethical leaders. We have a certification program right now that we're kind of redesigning for college and university students. And then a lot of our signature events, you can get continuing professional education hours. So if you're in HR, you can get some HR hours from SHRM. We're working with Nebraska Bar to do some legal education credits. So we've got lots of different opportunities to interact with us. And I think we'll just stop there for a second and see if you've got questions or if any comments are coming up that we need to address, because I'm kind of keeping a little eye on our time.
Well, the question, the education piece. How do we, let's take it from a sole practitioner, right? Somebody who's solely, a serial entrepreneur. I know there's quite a few out there, and I'm not going to mention names, but how do they get connected into being in some of these courses and educational pieces that you are putting on? Is it something that's ongoing, or are these being custom for simple organizations and they're going to have to contact the Business Ethics Alliance to engage in that?
That's a great question. So it happens in a couple of ways. For someone who's maybe more solo or very, very small businesses, like your mom and your pop bodegas, or maybe just a small community organization, the best thing I would recommend is to attend some of our signature events.
Okay.
Because I think they're a great way, I know they're a great way to network with others, They're a great way to explore an ethical topic, along with others. And they're a great way to kind of keep a pulse on what's going on and what the ethics issues are that we are keeping our eyes on in the community. At some point, and this is something that's on my radar for next year, I do want to do professional certification courses. So somebody, if they're just by themselves, maybe they're a CPA and they need ethics credits to maintain their licensure and their certification, they could come on in and just, by themselves and take part in one of our workshops that would be tailored a little bit more towards a specific industry. So in the example of the accountant, we would tailor one towards accounting or towards the legal or towards healthcare. So there's a variety of ways. I also want to do a few pop-up events where, I might say, save the date and here's the place and here's the time, but you won't know exactly what we're going to talk about until that night or maybe the morning of. So, trying to figure out some different ways to get engaged in the community. We have done speed ethics before, kind of like speed dating. We have done movie and ethics discussions. We've done ethics on tap. Just lots of different ideas over the years. And so I'm always open. If somebody's got an idea, they can absolutely reach out to me.
Absolutely. And I think it's at the end of your presentation, but how do they reach out to you?
Yep. I will share our contact information at the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Okay. I do not see any questions being streamed in at this point, but I'm sure I'm gonna have more.
Okay. So let me start with then a little bit of a recap of what we did when I last talked, and that'll lead really easily into talking about ethical relationships.
Perfect.
So here's the recap. Back in April, we looked at 3 components of effective and ethical networking. So we looked at the introduction, right? Who is it you want to get to know and how will you be introduced to them?
Okay.
We talked about all kinds of things from, hey, what's it like and is it ethical to just go up to someone and say, I'm AnnMarie and I want to get to know you. Does that creep some people out? Well, maybe. Other times you're in a networking situation and it's all about meeting as many people as you can.
Yes.
We talked about the ask. We talked about, well, what is it you would like to ask of your new connection? Why do you want to get to know this person? Is it because you want to ask them for $25,000? Well, that takes a different kind of an introduction than, hey, I am totally loving your outfit, right? Where did you get those shoes? Very different type of an ask.
Yep.
And then also the follow-up. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on today is what happens after that introduction and that ask. What is the follow-up like? So immediately, though, how will you show interest? How will you show gratitude? And what kind of further action will you take?
Okay.
So we spent a great half hour talking about that, having some good examples. And so, if you don't mind, at some point, I'll probably shoot some things back to you to say, hey, tell me about a time when you did X or Y or Z. That might help some of the folks out there who are listening to us and watching us kind of think about how this works in their own life.
That works for me.
Perfect. So to think about the introduction, we looked at a humorous example of this in action, and maybe not all people will find this humorous, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And I laugh every time I see this meme. So this is the character. His name is Inigo Montoya. He introduces himself to his lifelong sworn enemy. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And so if you look underneath the screen, you just have to remember Inigo Montoya's introduction. He started with a polite greeting, which is, hello. He gives his name. My name is Inigo Montoya. There's a relevant personal link. Hey, here's how we're connected. You killed my father. And we're going to manage some expectations. Prepare to die. That's your follow-up. Now, do I recommend something like that all of the time? No, that's probably a little direct. But I think the 4 steps below are pretty good. We also We watched a video about a very carefully crafted and persistent ask, and I'm going to show that video. It's not very long. It's, I don't know, 4 minutes or so. And then after the video, what I'd like for those who are watching and listening at home to do is to think about a new business contact that's been made recently and that you would like to develop a more deep relationship with. And this doesn't mean, like deep, lasting personal marriage type relationship. It can be a business relationship. In fact, it really should be. And then think about how you became connected to the contact. Okay. So I think I have to stop sharing and I'll reshare a new screen with the video. Give me just a second. Share screen. And here we go. This should be coming on. There we go. All right, so I'm going to play this right now. I just kind of do that, and here we go.
That's a really cool thing. I've always wanted to use one of those.
Uh-oh, it might be we might have a little bit of buffering. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Uh-oh. Come on. Shoot. If I can't get it to work again, the link is in the... Oh, darn it. It's such a cute video.
How about we just share the link in the comments?
Okay, that sounds good. So I think that's probably what I'm going to need to do. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Let me get that link for everybody. And I'll put it in the comments. Here we go. Let's see here. Can I just drop it in the comments somehow, or do I have to connect it to
just
an account? Comments. Okay. Let's see here. It doesn't seem to be wanting to do that for me. How about if I put it in the private chat, and then I think you might have a better way of doing that. So you'll probably be able to share better than I can. I'm really bummed because this video is so cute. It's about a 3 to 4 minute video. And the video is all about a young man who is trying to ask a young lady to a dance at school. And he goes through and he tries all of these different ways to ask her, and he gets turned down. And just his commentary in this video is heartwarming, because we hope that not everybody goes through what he went through in trying to ask this young woman. But it's a great example of how to do the ask.
Let's try. Hold on.
Yeah, let's see if you can do it. Oh,
yeah, let's try.
Okay. Awesome.
That's a really cool
perfect
thing. I've always wanted to use one of those. Okay. Hi, I'm Stanley, and this is how I got my date to the winter formal. Okay, so where to begin? I arrived at school on Friday, beaming with confidence. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Can't do it. Can't do it. Nope. Stop recording. Stop recording. God, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I had my eyes on Emma. Now, I've been working the nerve to ask her out for a while now, but I finally built up the courage to do it. Hey, will you go to the dance with me? No. We had different priorities. But wasn't gonna give up, so then I asked Olivia. Hey, Olivia, will you go to the dance with me? That didn't work out either. The way I see it, she just wasn't the one for me. But I wasn't gonna let that keep me down. I was not gonna give up until I had a date. So I asked a couple more girls. 1, 2, 20 more girls. And sadly, none of them said yes. But I handled rejection like a champ.
Sucks.
So, finally, the day was coming to an end, and it was becoming increasingly clear that no one was going to say yes. But then I remembered I hadn't asked one girl yet. So I was like, what the hell? What else do I have to lose? So I found her in the hall, and with nothing left on the line, I asked her, "Hey, will you go to the dance with me?"
Sure thing, Jack.
She said yes. Which of course I always expected her to do.
Yes! Oh my god, I did not think she was gonna say that. I didn't think she was gonna say yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Who's Jack? Oh no. It's not like that. It's like slang basically. So it's like, oh, you want to go to the dance with me? Jackpot. That type thing, Yeah, it doesn't matter what she meant when she said it. All right, what matters is I have a date to the winter formal.
Yes! Yeah!
Oh, that's actually her right now. Hey. Yeah. No. This is Stanley, not Jack. Yeah. Well, I thought you knew that when I asked. No. I never told you my name was Jack. But I don't see how that's my fault. Yeah. 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 I understand. No. I don't know Jack's number. Yeah. Okay. Bye. I don't want to talk about it.
Now you kind of see why I wanted to show that video, right? It's
Absolutely. Wow.
First of all, you just want to give Stanley a big hug, right? And say, it's okay, dude. You're going to be all right.
Or pat him back and be like, yeah, man, like effort. He gave effort.
He gave effort. And so as I share a couple of the next slides about the follow-up and building that ethical relationship, they're going to go right back to some of the things that you saw with Stanley and some of the things that he did as he made his ask.
Okay.
I love that. It was just such a heartwarming video, and it was so perfect, right? It's like that Inigo Montoya. Here's your greeting. Here's your managing expectations. And then you've got the perfect ask. So let me go ahead and share the slides again. All right. So remember, I want you to think about picking a new business contact, somebody you want to develop a long-lasting and productive relationship with, and then how did you become connected to this contact? Think about Stanley. He was connected to a lot of people. He wants to develop a little bit longer lasting relationship. How's he going to do that? Well, you need to build some trust. Trust is the foundation of any healthy and ethical relationship, right? You've got to have trust that comes through consistent behaviors and clear meaning of words and intentions. The other thing to remember about trust is you've got to be a little bit patient, because trust is going to start with positive intentions generally. I mean, yes, there are some folks out there who have some fairly questionable intentions, but the vast majority of people, I believe, truly have positive intentions. It's just going to take some time, though. When you trust that the other party has honorable intentions, it allows both parties in that relationship to work through any challenges that come up, and they will. But when you trust, you have faith in positive intentions, you can work through those challenges, and then you can get some better outcomes. If there is no trust, that relationship will likely fail, or at the very least, it'll be unfulfilling and it will grow stagnant. So now think about this. How do you know you can trust your new contact? How do you know they are worthy of your trust? What will you do to gain their trust? So Shay, think about, and if you're willing, share an example of maybe somebody that you've met recently, and you can change names to protect the innocent. But somebody you've met, how did you get to know them? How do you know you can trust them? Or are you not quite sure of that yet at this point?
I mean, that's in my profession, in law, I sit with a lot of clients.
Okay.
And some of them are court appointments, so it's not like they just, randomly found me or referred to me or anything else. It's just, the nature of the beast. So in that first meeting, that's the opportunity of, especially when we're talking criminal offense, of ensuring that what you say and what I say is the truth. Because if we have to actually fight whatever charge it is, you're gonna have to trust me and I'm gonna have to trust you, and that is the issue. And so generally speaking, whatever they say initially, sometimes I don't know if I can trust them. And I find out as I go, or better yet, there's already things I do know, and I may ask a question for an answer I already know to see what the response is going to be.
Ooh, that's a great idea. Hold on to that thought, because we're going to get to that in a second. We see in the media, right? We see this in movies where an attorney is appointed to represent their client, and they're doing their darndest, and then something changes, right? They get information that the client was lying to them, or they find out information that maybe the client wasn't really lying, but another circumstance is influencing something. And now there's that doubt, there's that distrust.
Yes.
And it impacts the relationship completely.
100%.
Yeah. So trust is really critical. Be patient. And this is hard. Think about poor Stanley, right? How patient was Stanley in that video? Oh my goodness. So there's a saying that you only get one chance to make a first impression, and that might be true. But first impressions are not the only impression. I asked my husband, I said, what did you think of me when you first met me? And maybe I shouldn't have answered or asked the question. Because he was honest and he was candid, and he said, well, I thought you were kind of stuck up. And I'm like, wow, okay. It's a good thing that we got past that then. Right? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, but you can change and impact the longer lasting impression. And it takes time. It just takes time. And you need to prioritize that partner's needs so that those mutually beneficial outcomes that we've been talking about, those can be reached. Okay. And taking time to be honest about what each can bring to the relationship sets the stage for successful future collaboration opportunities. So the most fruitful conversations that I've had with people I want to develop a longer term business relationship with are ones where both parties are really candid.
Hmm.
I've had some of our trustee partners who are our ambassadors, and they're our support, and they spread the great word in the community. Some of them have said, when, the Alliance, did this, I wasn't so thrilled about that. Or, I really loved it when you did this. Why did you stop? Okay, that's good information for me as I'm continuing to try to build these relationships. So when we think about being patient, how long have you known this new contact? How often do you meet with them, right? Because it's just going to take some time. So, you gave a great example about that attorney-client relationship. Sometimes you don't get much opportunity to get to know them before you have to go to court and represent them. Tell us a little bit about, maybe a time when you had to do that and you didn't know your client very well.
I mean, that happens more frequently than not. It's a matter of I get a very limited amount of information in a very short amount of time, and it requires me to analyze that information and then meet with them. And I don't wear a robe, I don't sit on a bench, so I'm not here to judge anybody. But at the end of the day, I have to. There's information I need to know in order to best advocate.
Yeah.
And when somebody is not being candid, and when somebody is not being forthcoming, it makes it much more difficult to be able to advocate or see the full picture. And so, and that's just on the on me giving my services, and there's also, the smaller things of too often I go in. For instance, I went and got dinner earlier this week, and I called in my order because I had to come back to the office, and what I ordered and what I got were two different things.
Sure.
So it comes into a matter of even the listening part, and is that person showing me that they're listening to what because now I think you go back, there's a level of distrust in that business that they're actually going to put in my order as I asked for it. And then I walk out and get back to the office. I'm like, this is not what I ordered. And so that's part of that communication and trust, is that listening ability. And so that plays a huge part in whether it's me providing my services or I'm getting service from somebody else.
Right. That is an excellent example. We don't think of, when we are the customer or we are the client, we don't always think of ourselves as being in a relationship, right? It's, hey, I'm just purchasing a service or I'm purchasing a product, but you are in a relationship. And so that relationship, we bring a lot to that relationship, and we'll see that next. You talked about listening, Shay, and I didn't put it in here specifically, but listening is a huge part of communicating effectively, right?
Yes.
Entire fields. I mean, I spent 4 years, parts of 4 years in my college, looking at aspects of communication, and communication, we struggle with this every single day. Most of us do. Simple things. We don't take the time to listen. We want to get what we want to get. We want to get where we want to go. We want to get the outcome, and we're impatient. Simple things. Words matter. English major here, right? Oh my goodness. When I'm working with my kids, I have a teenage son and a preteen daughter. And I try very, very hard to make sure that I'm giving examples they're going to understand, or that I'm being clear with what I want from them. And for all you parents out there, how often does it come back? Well, you didn't say that. Yeah, I did. Right? Think about, in the beginning of our conversation here, I talked about, I don't always like to go into a presentation and say ethical this and ethical, because people tend to turn out. And there's lots of ways to say that. But if I'm not clear with my intention, both my literal definition, that's my son's favorite word. Well, literally, no, really, Alex, literally. Come on, right? And then I usually come back, well, figuratively, right? And we just kind of debate as to what the word really means. And so it's important to make sure that your meaning is clear. Tone of voice. Oh my goodness, we're having a friendly collegial conversation. But the minute I change my tone of voice, I remember being in a presentation once, and I was trying to get the attention of the group, and it was a group of business people, professionals, and I finally had to use my teacher voice.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I did. And one of the professionals who was sitting right next to me turned to me, looked, he goes, "Oh my God, you really are a teacher, aren't you?" I'm like, well, yeah, it was how I could get your attention. He's like, that just sent chills up and down my spine, putting me back in my student days. So tone of voice makes a difference. And then delivery. Delivery matters, right? Our body language, our eye contact, all of that matters when we're trying to communicate, because all of it can communicate different things. So our words might say one thing, but our tone of voice and our body language say something completely different. Well, that's all going to impact how we build that ethical relationship, because we're not going to know what we can really trust in the other person.
I think to this point, I think one of the things that I struggle with the most is there's times where I'm physically or mentally not checked out. And to communicate and communicate effectively takes what you're telling me, it takes work.
It does.
And sometimes I don't have the energy or the emotional connection to put in that work at that time.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest and true with myself, sometimes there's a matter of not taking that communication or waiting to communicate for when it's the right time and I have the right mentality or the right mindset and energy to do so.
That is such a great point. If we know, and that's part of that emotional intelligence that comes along with being able to build a healthy relationship and an ethical relationship. If we know something about ourselves, just like you were saying, in your example, I'm tired, I'm tuned out, I'm not in the right mindset to have a particular type of conversation. Can we reschedule it? That's okay. That goes back to sometimes we have to be patient.
Yep.
I've been in meetings where the meeting started out great and I got a call, to handle a personal matter. And all of a sudden I was not in the mindset to have that conversation. And sometimes I said, I have to take care of something. This was unexpected. Could we reschedule? Other times I weigh that against, okay, how serious was that really? Can it wait for 20 minutes? I'll finish my meeting and then I'll call them back. But these are choices we face all the time. And these are the ethical choices, ethical decision-making that we have to think about. So when you're thinking about that example, for those of you, again, listening at home, what communication styles do you have? Is it easy for others to understand you and your meaning? Pardon the spelling mistake. Oh my goodness. Or are there areas where you struggle to communicate sometimes? Very important to understand your own style. And then finally, you've got to manage your expectations appropriately. Go back to Inigo Montoya, Prepare to Die. He managed his expectations. Appropriate maybe is a little questionable, but he managed expectations. So we all bring expectations to a relationship. Mm-hmm. We all do. Salespeople want to close a sale with a prospective client. Leaders want to develop high-performing teams. Teammates want others to rely on to accomplish a goal. But successful, healthy, and ethical relationships share common and realistic expectations. They don't have to be the exact same, but they do need to be common and realistic. Both of the people then in that relationship also need to be able to be clear about their expectations. They need to negotiate for needs when the time is right and compromise when compromise is needed. Because if you have unrealistic and unrealized expectations, that's going to set the individuals in that relationship up for a really high degree of disappointment. So, going back, think about what expectations for the relationship with that new contact are you bringing in with you, right? What can that new contact expect of you? Shay, going back to your attorney client, the client is probably coming in saying, hey, you're going to, advocate on my behalf. And if there's a really big consequence, you're going to try to minimize that consequence for me. Correct?
Correct. But at the same time, there's somewhat of a misnomer, right? And the misnomer is, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of information that may not be true or accurate.
Yeah.
And then I want you to advocate for me based upon this false information. And what most don't realize or understand is ethically, I'm prohibited by law in my license to advocate for something I know is to be false. So that goes back into that trust part of, the information I get. If I verify it and it's true, then yes, that's what I'm using. But if I'm looking to verify it and I find it to be false, you just created not only you made my job a lot more difficult.
Sure.
And now everything that's being said is now being continually second guessed as a result of that. And that goes back down to, I think your first point is trust.
Yeah. It's absolutely critical in an ethical relationship to have trust. If you don't have that trust, the ethics are going to be really tough, right? Because how do we know that they're being ethical if we can't trust them? So
Absolutely.
It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg, but that's how closely aligned and related they are. So before we wrap up in a minute or two here, I want to just tell a quick story about a relationship with some folks from Google. And I never thought I would be in a position where I would be talking with folks from Google, but we were working with a Google team here to plan a very large signature event. I talked about it, the AI one in August.
Yep.
And we ran into some unforeseen challenges. These were not intentional. They were not anything bad or nefarious. It was just they came up. So part of my challenge is I came in to the relationship partway through the planning stages. The relationship was initiated by another. So we had to renegotiate what the expectations were to make sure that myself and my Google partner were on the same page with what we expected, because it started out a little differently.
Okay.
Some expectations were a little bit less clear, some were less developed, some were a little bit less well documented, and some had just changed over time. So because there were several people involved at the earlier stages, and each had different perceptions and expectations of what this event and what our relationship could look like, we had to renegotiate, right? We had to build that trust. We had to be patient. We had to communicate. And it led to a very successful outcome. And we had 130 people at that event.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a big event. So it was that continual communication. It was consistent behavior, managing expectations. We had that great event, and we're still talking about where are some other avenues where we might be able to collaborate in the future. So great positive outcomes. I'm so grateful to the Google team. Just an amazing experience. So again, for you guys listening at home, think about your plan to build an ethical relationship with your new contact. What parts of that plan might be challenging, and what will be easy for you? If you have, and I always advise folks to have like a personal board of directors, a team that they can go back to check ideas, say, hey, am I way off base here? Or I think this will work. What does it still need? Or I just need a cheerleader, whatever that is, go back to that group, right? And then talk about your plan. Hey, I really want to build a relationship with the new business down the street. They have great food, and I would love to see what kind of relationship we could have where I could do something for them, they could do something for me. Just, making something up, right?
Yep.
And run the plan by them. Run the plan by your advisors and see what they say, so that you go into building this relationship in a manner that is ethical and trustworthy and relies on good, clear communication, manages expectations well. So the last thing then is a final thought. People don't have to share all of the same values to display ethical behavior or use ethical decision-making or build trust. Values influence our ethics and their trust, but they're not all the same. And that's okay. So Our website is www.businessethics.org. You can contact me at amarlier@businessethics.org, and I'm happy to give more information, to talk with you, and share more of what we do.
Dr. Marlier, thank you so very much for this presentation. It speaks volumes to our members and to those at large at the very crux of what business is, and that is relationships. And in order to grow and scale our businesses, we must have ethical relationships. So on behalf of the Midlands African Chamber, thank you so very much, because our members and our community will grow and scale in an ethical manner for which will rise our entire community.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. I love to work with folks. I love to collaborate and see where those opportunities are. And so if I can be of assistance to you, to the chamber, to any of your chamber's members, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, be careful what you think. We're wish for.
But we'll be building our relationship ethically, for sure.
There we go. Well, thank you again so much. This has been another episode of the Power Hour, brought to you by our champion supporter, Wells Fargo. Until next time, don't forget we have the Gratitude Gala coming up on November 11th. We have other events coming up. Check our website, midlandsafricanchamber.com. I am Shay Ololafe. If you're not a part of our tribe, come join us. Until next time, be well, stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.